Hi everybody, Andrew here. Welcome back to the RLD video tutorial series. In this video I'm going to talk to you about gizmo appearance. So we're going to see how you can actually customize the look and feel of the gizmos. So the first thing you have to do is you have to go to RT Object Selection Gizmos right here and click on it. And then you can see we have a tab for each gizmo. I have Move, Rotate, Scale, Box Scale, Universal, and Extrude gizmos, right? I'm going to switch to play mode so you can actually see the changes taking place. So we're going to start with the Move gizmo. The Move gizmo has, you can see it has here 3D mode look and feel and 2D mode look and feel. So 3D mode and 2D mode are two ways in which the Move gizmo can operate. By default, so this is the 3D mode of the gizmo, the default, but if you hold down the shift key it will switch to 2D mode. This is the 2D mode. So let's start talking about the 3D mode settings. Now there is a whole bunch of settings here and I'm not going to go through all of them. The labels should be pretty much self-explainable, and the you also have access to tooltips if you want to see if you want to get an explanation for what something means, and sometimes those tooltips can actually help. But I am going to go through the most important things that I believe you will probably want to just change or customize. Okay, so the first thing we have here is use zoom factor. This is actually something that you'll most likely always want to leave checked. So if you uncheck this, the gizmo will be it will become smaller or bigger based on its distance from the camera. And this is not something that you want to do with gizmo, so you should always just leave this on. Then you have a scale value that can be used to scale the gizmo. So control just the big the size of the global size of the gizmo, so to speak. Okay. Then you have slider shape. So this is where you can configure settings related to the shape of the sliders. Now sliders are these lines that that correspond to a particular axis, and sliders are also these rectangles. Those are double sliders because they can be used to move along two different axes at once. Okay, so by default the slider shape is set to thin. I'm gonna set it to box, for example, to make them thicker. And then you see you also have this, once you change this to box, you have box height and box depth, which allow you to change the size of the box. Of course, you're most likely always going to have these two set to the same value. I'm gonna use a value of 0.2 for now. Okay, there you go. You have also slider length, which allows you to control the length of the sliders. And finally, you have a slider type called cylinder, which is a cylinder instead of a box, right? Okay. Then you have double slider size. The size of the double sliders, something like this. And see, the thing is, when you're using either cylinder or box, the doubles, you might want to change the border type of the double sliders, because this is it just doesn't look right here, right? So you can do that by going to slider border. You have here double slider border type and change it from thin to box, and once you do that you get thick borders like that, right? So you can keep a consistent look. Okay. And of course you can also change the border height, which is the height is perpendicular to the slider plane, and the border depth, something like this. It goes inwards like inside the area of the slider. Okay. Then you have cap shape, right? So the caps are the shapes that sit at the top of the sliders, at the tip of the sliders. By default it's set to cone, but you can actually change this to pyramid, box, sphere, sphere and a triangular prism. Yeah. And for each one of these, like when you change, let's say we change to, I don't know, sphere, you get the sphere radius. You can modify the sphere radius, right? If you modify to triangular prism, you can change the width, the height, and the depth, for example, right? I'm gonna leave it to cone. You can change the height and the radius, right? Okay. You have here, you also have here mid cap type. So what is this mid cap? I'm gonna talk about this. It's mostly for decoration purposes. It doesn't have any functionality. You cannot interact with it. I'm gonna talk about it a little bit later. Okay, then you have the colors. You can change the colors of the gizmo, of the gizmo axis, and then you have shading, which is basically it allows you to choose how different handles are lit. Yeah, by default all of them are lit, but for example, let's just say that we want the slider caps to be flat. Yeah, there, when you choose flat, no lighting effect is applied to the gizmo handles. Let's also choose flat for the double slider borders. Yeah, there you go. No more lighting effect here. Okay. And then you also have fill mode, actually, which allows you to specify. Let me just show you what I mean. Sliders. Let's just say no. Actually, let's use the sliders caps. Let's just say that we want the slider caps to be rendered as wireframe. So instead of having field here, we have to specify wire, and there you go. And maybe let's change this to something else. The cap. Let's use pyramid. Looks a little bit more interesting. Okay. I don't know, something like that, yeah. And we can do the same for the sliders themselves, and even for the double slider borders. Although that looks a little bit confusing. So let's just set this to field, and maybe just if you want these to be wired, then maybe you just want to go ahead and just decrease the thickness. I think let's just make this a little bit like that, right? And that will probably give some better results. Yeah, actually you can't see the wire in this case, and maybe you want to set the double slider plane alpha to 0. Yeah, so this looks a lot better. Okay. Next we have vertex snapping. Yeah, so when you hold down the V key, oh sorry, this is something else. When you hold down the V key, you can see you get this rectangle. This is the vertex snap cap, which allows you to perform vertex snapping, right? And these are the settings that you can use to modify the appearance of that rectangle. And you can actually change it to a circle if you wish. Yeah, so now we get a circle, and let's just change the circle radius to something like 45.05. There you go. Right, so there's field mode border. We can actually have field and border, for example. Yeah, something like this, or just field like this. Then you can change the field color, the hovered field color, the border color, and the hovered border color. Yeah, so there's a lot of customization, and this is why I don't want to get into it, because there's a lot of lots of combinations that you can do, and it would literally take quite a lot of time to actually cover the whole thing. But as I said, these are usually named intuitively. I've done my best to name them as intuitively as possible, and also, you know, keep these categorized so that you can actually easily find the category of settings that you're looking for. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is actually not really the last thing, but for the 3D mode, it is the last thing, is slider visibility. Yeah, so by default you have 3 axes visible, but you can actually have, you can also show the negative x-axis, the negative y-axis, and the negative z-axis, and you can do the same for the caps. Yeah, there you go. So now we have sliders and caps for all 6 axes. Yeah, the positive and the negative axes, and you can also customize the visibility of the double sliders. There you go. So if you don't want the double sliders to be visible, then no problem. Yeah. Okay, actually let me just set this to lit, and let's reset this to, you know, something which looks a little bit more normal, I guess. Okay, and you have hide all. Yeah, so if you want to hide all the sliders or some of them, for example, you can do something like this. Yeah, so this is where you control the slider visibility, and this is where you control the slider cap visibility. Hide all, show all, right? Or selectively like this. Yeah, so you can just basically, you can go crazy with this and just make it look however you wish, right? Okay, actually let's increase that a little bit. Okay, and finally, I promised you that we're going to talk about that mid cap. Let me show. Oh, okay, there it is. And also let's also yeah, okay, yeah, that's it. So the mid cap, if you check this here, it will draw a cap in the middle of the gizmo, yeah, the gizmo origin, so to speak. Why this is useful? Well, it's useful, you can't interact with it in any way. It's useful when you want to, for example, do something a little bit more crazy with the slider shape. For example, we have it set it to box. Let's set the box height to, I don't know, something like this. Yeah, actually, because of the way these gizmos are rotated, because of the way the axes are oriented, it's not going to work. So let me just experiment with this a little bit. So slider shape, okay, slider shape. Okay, yeah, something like this. Okay, and it'll probably make some sense to hide okay, and let's do something like this, right? So at this point, let's just say you want to have a gizmo that looks something like this, right? So only the X and Z axis, positive and negative, are being shown, and let's just also modify the pyramid. Okay, yeah, something like this, and let's decrease the scale a little bit. Okay, now as you can see, right where all these axes intersect with each other, there's this, it doesn't look right? It just doesn't look very well. So you can use this mid cap to actually hide the intersection point between the axes, and you can so you can make it visible from here, and then you can go and customize it. You can change the color of the mid cap from here, and you can change the mid cap shape from box to sphere from here. And if I set it to box, I'm probably going to use something like, I don't know, 2, 2, 2, yeah, or make it even, yeah. And now you can see that it actually looks a lot better. So if you want to use something like this in your scene, then it looks a lot better. Now this is of course something that you might not always decide to do. Like you might, it's like situations like these are quite rare. I'm just showing you that it is possible to do it if you want to do it. So yeah, this is how you would use the mid cap. Okay, now let's quickly talk about the 2D mode look and feel. And what I'm actually gonna do is, I was planning on exiting play mode and entering again, but I don't really need to do that. And so when I hold down the shift key, it enters 2D mode, and I can translate along the axis of the camera. Okay, now here it's pretty much the same thing, yeah, but the settings apply to these 2D sliders. So for example, you can change the slider type from thin to box again, yeah, you get thick boxes, the slider length, and unfortunately I have to press and unpress shift because otherwise, like if I hold down shift and start modifying something in the inspector, it will hide the gizmo. You can have the slider box thickness, something like that. You have the cap shape, which it can be arrow, circle, or quad. This is quad, this is circle. Let's change the radius of the circle, something like this, right? And we have, of course, arrow is the default. Let's just do something like this, right? And And then you have the double slider type. The double slider is this thing in the middle that allows you to translate along two axes at once. Yeah. Default is set to quad. You can set it to circle. And this is a bug here. This should not show up. Yeah. For this type of slider, the polygon option is not going to be available in the release. Yeah, this is a bug. I'm going to fix it after I finish recording this video. So only quad and circle are available. And then of course you can customize the colors, and again you can customize the axis, the visibility of the axis like this, right? Okay, and let's just make that circle a little bigger. Yeah, this actually looks quite nice. It looks like the barrel is trapped inside the circle. Yeah, so you can pretty much go crazy with this and just customize your gizmos however you wish. Okay, now the scale gizmo, I'm gonna press R to activate it. So the scale gizmo uses pretty much the same format, right? Except for the fact it doesn't have a 2D mode. What the scale gizmo does have is a multi-axis scale mode. Yeah, so by default you have this box here in the middle which allows you to perform uniform scaling. But if I hold down the shift key, I'm gonna get these triangles which allow you to scale along 2 axes at once. Yeah, instead of 3 axes, gonna scale around 2 axes. Yeah, sometimes that might be useful. Not recommended because it can actually cause, you know, stretching, and it's not something that you would usually use, but it's there if you need it, right? And if you want to change the size of these sliders, you can go to double slider size. Again, the same terminology, yeah, double slider, because those are 2 axes here. Yeah. Slider length, there you go. You can also change the slider shape to box and cylinder again, right? However, just keep in mind that if you're planning on using box, then you might want to use a really thin box because you cannot it is not possible, at least not for now, to change the thickness of the triangle borders. So the thickness of the triangle borders cannot be changed. Okay. So then you also have caps. Yeah, pretty much everything that we've talked about when discussing the move gizmo is available with the scale gizmo. Just keep this in mind. When you hold down shift, you get this multi-axis, this double axis scale mode, which you cannot have thick borders for these triangles. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so you might actually choose to disable. So you have here change multi-axis mode. You might want to choose to disable multi-axis if you want to use like really, you know, thick axis, like something like, I don't know, something like this, for example. Let's say you might want to disable the shift key here so that it doesn't really go into double axis scale mode, and you know, that will just make things look better, because in pretty much like most of the times you are going to want to scale along all 3 axes at once. Yeah, so the double axis scale mode is something that you're not really going to use that often. Okay, now let's talk about the rotation gizmo. I'm gonna press E to activate it. So again, we have look and feel here. You have slider border, which allows you to control the like the border of these sliders here that can be used to rotate around individual axes. And the border type can be set to thin, which is the default, torus, yeah, and you can control the thickness of the torus like this, or cylindrical torus, which is basically like a flat torus, and you can increase its width and height. Yeah, something like this. There you go. Yeah, that actually looks really cool. You have the axis colors, fill mode for, like, if you're using torus or cylindrical torus, you can specify the fill mode, wire or field. You have the rotation arc, yeah, so when you click and drag one of the sliders, there's a rotation arc which appears to indicate roughly the amount of rotation. You can turn it off by unchecking is visible. Yeah, there we go. You can change the fill color, the border color, and you have something here called use shortest arc. Yeah, so what happens is when you go over 180 degrees, it looks as if the arc is basically just mirrored, right? This is because the arc always uses the shortest rotation between the two, between the start and end points of the rotation, right? But if you uncheck this, then you can use, you have something like this. Yeah. Okay. Then you have camera look slider. The camera look slider is this thin line which surrounds the gizmo, and it rotates the objects around the camera look vector. You can change the border type, which is set to thin, but you can also set to thick. Yeah, and you can of course increase the thickness, something like this. Radius offset, yeah, so how far away from the gizmo this slider will sit. Yeah, there you go. And then border color and border hovered color. Yeah, so when you hover it, let's just say you want to make it bluish. Yeah, there you go. And then you have visibility for different axes, for the X, Y, Z. Camera look slider, yeah. Mid cap. The mid cap is the sphere of the gizmo, yeah. So when you click and drag on that sphere, you're basically rotating around the camera right and up vectors, and that's the mid cap. Yeah, you can hide it if you wish. And mid cap border, that's the border of the sphere, right? Okay, yeah, so that's it with the move gizmo, or with the rotation gizmo. Let's talk about the box scale gizmo. So that's activated via the T key on the keyboard. Well, basically here you can customize the tick type, yeah, the shape, which is default set. The default is set to quad. You can set it to circle, for example. I can make these bigger or smaller. Same for quad. You can change the quad width and height. Yeah, there you go. The colors, yeah, the box wire color, it uses a transparent white. You can make this fully opaque. You can change it to red, for example. X, Y, and Z ticks, yeah, for that, like that, you can control the color of the ticks that are associated with a particular axis, the color of the hover ticks, and the tick border, yeah, which is set to transparent black. You can make these. There you go, yeah. And let's actually increase the size. And it also works with circles, yeah. So there's like a thin border around them. Like that. There you go. And you have tick hovered border color. Yeah. So the color of the border when the tick is hovered. Let's make that, I don't know, red. Oh, we also need to change the alpha value. Okay. Yeah. So something like that. Okay. Then we have universal gizmo. Yeah. So universal gizmo. Because it's a mixture of move, rotate, and scale gizmos, it's actually it was a little bit crazy to do this, and I actually had a few doubts about how to do it. But you have the first thing you have here. We're gonna ignore these for now. Yeah, like the first line with the one with inherit, and we're just gonna talk about the display category. So the display category allows you to control the category of settings that you can modify here. By default, it's set to move, which means that the settings that you can modify here have the same format as the ones that we've already talked about when discussing the move gizmo. They're not the same settings, yeah, so if you modify something for the universal gizmo, if you change settings for the universal gizmo, it's not going to affect the move gizmo, and vice versa, right? Then you have rotate again and scale, right? Which corresponds to rotation gizmo and scale gizmo. Now, so if you want, you can actually have you can just modify different aspects of the universal gizmo based on different categories. Now the thing is, what I recommend is that if you change the look and feel of the move gizmo, for example, you should pretty much have the same look and feel for the universal gizmo, right? So if the move gizmo is using, for example, thick sliders or something like that, and it would probably be a good idea to have the universal gizmo use the same settings. It would be crazy to, you know, make sure that you always synchronize these manually. So what you can do is you have this first row here called it's a button called inherit. Then it's the category of settings that you would like to inherit, like move, rotate, or scale, and then it's another category of settings which specifies what it is that you want to inherit. You want to inherit a look and feel 3D, look and feel 2D. 2D and 3D apply only for so this 2D and 3D separation is only currently available for the move gizmo because it has the 3D and 2D modes. Yeah. So for example, let's just say that the move gizmo, I think we've already, okay, we've already changed the appearance of the move gizmo. So let's just say that we want to inherit the move look and feel 3D. Yeah, we can just press inherit, and there you go. Right. Okay. Did I? Yeah. Okay. There's a bug here which doesn't inherit. No. It's okay. There's no bug. See the difference. The universal gizmo does not have. It still has a mid cap which is used for scaling, but it doesn't have the mid cap that the move gizmo uses for decorative purposes. Yeah, so the universal gizmo uses a mid cap that is used for uniform scaling, and in order to change the size of that, you're gonna need to go to here, scale, 3D mode, look and feel, mid cap, and box, there you go, with depth and with height and depth, yeah, something like that. And again, this is used for uniform scaling, right? Okay, there you go. You can also inherit, for example, the rotation gizmo settings. Yeah, if I press inherit, there you go. We've inherited the rotation gizmo settings. Of course, this is pretty much a mess. Yeah, so there's no way in hell that you will ever want to do something like this. I'm just showing you how this works. This is the fastest way to synchronize, you know, the universal gizmo with the other types of gizmos. But in all honesty, this doesn't look right? So just because you can customize the gizmos in any way you see fit doesn't mean that you should actually do it. What I actually recommend is, and this is really, I'm not kidding right now, like if you can use the standard default, like the default look and feel, that would be the best thing to do. Right, because it just looks professional and it's probably what most people are used to. So yeah, if you need to change something, then go ahead and change it, but just use common sense to decide where you should stop. Okay, and then finally we have the extrude gizmo. You can change the cap type to something that. Those are the caps. That you can use to extrude. You can change them to different shapes. Again, the colors and the shadings of the caps and the fill mode. Yeah, so you can have them wired, for example, if you wish, something like that. There you go. Okay, and now there's one more gizmo that we haven't talked about. Is the scene gizmo. So the appearance of the scene gizmo can be customized by going to RT Gizmo Engine, press the Scene Gizmo tab, and then here you have a bunch of settings like the corner in which the gizmo should appear, the screen offset. Yeah, you can specify an offset for the gizmo. You can use pyramid and cones for the axes, and the mid cap can be set to either box or sphere like this. Again, lit and flat shading, depending on how you want your gizmo to look. And then you have the colors, the axis labels tint. Yeah, allows you to control the color of the X, Y, Z labels here, and the camera projection switch label. The camera projection switch label is this one right here. Yeah, when you click on it, you change between perspective and orthographic. Sorry, this one. And the same happens when you click on the mid cap right there. And you can also turn that label off if you wish. Yeah, so again, as I said in the beginning of the video, this was not meant to be a comprehensive, coverage of all the settings, and I would like to insist on the fact that you should use the defaults. Okay, well, like most of them were, of course, like for example, move, rotate, and scale, and so on, were were inspired by the Unity editor. Yeah, so they're using what the Unity editor is using, and it just looks professional. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so I think this is pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in this video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.